Welcome to the GRTiQ podcast. Today is a special day for the GRTiQ podcast as we celebrate another incredible milestone. This is episode 200. As many of you already know, since the podcast launched in 2021, we've never missed a single Friday release, and that's all thanks to you, our amazing listeners, who continue to show up week after week. This milestone is not just a marker of where we've been, but also a sign of where we're heading. As we look to 2025, we're doubling down on our commitment to elevate the stories of Web3 and amplify the voices of the builders shaping its future. The best is truly yet to come. Now, some of you might have expected a special episode to commemorate this occasion, and trust me, today's guest absolutely delivers. But here's the exciting part. I'm saving something really big to share with you for early 2025. I'll be making a major announcement that's sure to turn some heads and spark a lot of conversations. And it's also going to bring some exciting changes to the GRTiQ podcast. And I can't wait to share more with you when the time comes. For now, I just want to say thank you. Whether you've been with us since episode 1 or joined somewhere along the way, your support means everything. This journey has been incredible, and as we step into 2025, things are about to get even more exciting. So stay tuned, and as always, thank you for listening to the GRTiQ podcast, and here's to the next 200 episodes.
The following podcast is for informational purposes only. The contents of this podcast do not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice. Take responsibility for your own decisions, consult with the proper professionals, and do your own research.
I think future of AI is going to be big. As I told you, it's like how electricity changed the world. It's a general purpose innovation. Very similarly, that's how AI is going to be.
GRTiQ podcast.
They're like astronauts floating in the space of time. Just between.
Today, I'm speaking with Ram Kumar, co-founder at OpenLedger, a platform building specialized AI models through decentralized data collection and attribution. Born and raised in Chennai, India's thriving tech hub, Ram has been actively involved in the Web3 space since 2017. Ram's journey from building Web3 solutions for enterprises to founding OpenLedger was driven by his observation of data bottlenecks in AI development. His vision for specialized AI models that can power purposeful agents while ensuring fair attribution to data contributors showcases his commitment to making AI development more accessible and transparent. I started the conversation with Ram by talking about his background in Chennai and how the accessibility of Web3 has enabled talented builders from India to make significant contributions to the industry.
I'm originally from India, but I almost travel every other country. That's how it's in Web3 nowadays, right? I spend a lot of time between SF and India. Chennai is the place where I was born and raised. So these are my current two cities. Interestingly, Chennai is a home to a lot of tech entrepreneurs. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, is from Chennai. Aravind Perplexity CEO is from Chennai. Sriram Kannan, who's from Aigalere, he's from Chennai. It's a good place to be coming from. But yes, this is my city.
As someone from India, has it been either surprising to you, or did you sort of suspect this would be the case, that so many founders and builders in Web3 are emerging from India?
India has been always a powerhouse of talent, right? I guess the exposure and liquidity has been always an issue in terms of funding. Crypto actually breaks that, right? It's a place where anyone from anywhere can come in, and if they have talent, if they can get the right opportunities, they will be able to shine. And that's what we see happening in crypto nowadays. You don't need to know someone to raise money or get funding, right? It's not a big surprise that a lot of Indians in crypto right now. And I'm glad that it's happening. I'm glad that you're able to make a change in this industry.
Take us back in time. When did you first become interested in technology? And do you remember sort of either that moment or that experience that lit that fire for you?
So in middle years, right? I all belong to this millennials era. We've always seen tech evolve as we grew up. I remember my first time we had a computer in our home was when I was like in sixth grade, and we had this dial-up internet. I'm sure that everyone in my age can relate to that. I had to wait for that to get connected so that I can actually have a conversation with my aunt who was living out of India in Canada. I almost talked to her every day during that time because I used to learn from her what's happening, in other countries because technology was much more ahead, right? That was my first foray into tech, understanding tech. So I used tech to understand about tech, and it is quite interesting. Other than that, I think games was always a big deal for me. So playing games on PCs was the biggest movement for me every day. So yeah, so I think these two are the biggest directions for me to get into tech. Always been fascinated with mobile phones and how it revolutionized the app era. Before crypto, before 2017, before I got into Web3 space, I was more into apps. I felt that it's one of the biggest revolutions that happened post-internet era. So yeah, I've been always fascinated by how phones have been this exocortex of our lives, right? Exocortex is sort of like a rented brain where you use another device to optimize how you are performing your everyday task or your needs. And mobile phones have been a true exocortex for us. Today, if I take a mobile phone out of your hand, you would not be able to function, even though it's sad in a way, but it has really helped us in a lot of ways for connecting people and letting us know so much about life, and in fact been life-saving in so many situations as well for many people. I've been always fascinated with tech and what it can do to improve people's lives.
So you mentioned that you got interested in kind of the crypto blockchain space in 2017. That's quite a while ago. Talk to us about that transition and how you got interested in crypto.
Yeah, I'm a bit old. So 2017 is interesting. I've been telling this to a lot of people that I've spoken. I got paid in Bitcoin. Myself and my co-founder, we got paid in Bitcoin, and saw the tech behind that and saw how amazing it was that you could pay someone across the globe in few seconds. And then, saw there's a need for more devs to participate in this ecosystem, but because there were not many people who were building, that led us to build an R&D company. It started very small, maybe 10 employees initially along with us, and then did some interesting worked with a lot of protocols, grew to about 200 plus employees. I had a good experience with that, and we still continue to do that on the side. We've worked with Polygon, had a Hashgraph. We've worked with the recent enterprises like Aptos and many more blockchains out there. We've also got an opportunity to work with traditional companies who wanted to migrate to Web3. So had a chance and opportunity to work with Walmart's India subsidiary, Flipkart, Cadbury's, Pepsi, Los Angeles Times, and many more traditional businesses. We helped them launch Web3 initiatives. It's a very interesting learning curve for us, and that taught us a lot about various needs of the industry, how the industry is a forerunner in a lot of stuff, and also is behind on many things compared to the traditional industry. So we saw data was a big bottleneck, right? Data was never on chain, and we could not do much with data on chain. So that's what, kind of triggered us to build something around data and AI. That what led to OpenLedger.
Going back just a little bit to the experience you had in 2017, you mentioned that you were working at the time and you were being paid in Bitcoin. What was it beyond just the fact that you were able to sort of get paid globally, I guess, exchange funds globally? What was it about the tech that caught your eye? What did you see at that time?
It just made anyone across the globe to permissionlessly get involved and start building products. Back 2017, the only Ethereum had was that you could launch tokens on top of that. That is a bit crazy. We saw a lot of ICOs come in. Even though there was a lot of scam, there were quite a bit of interesting projects which used token as a utility to encourage people to participate We've seen projects where people use token to let people contribute data or use token to make them do an activity and stuff like that. That is quite interesting. And we've all seen the DeFi summer, right? I think DeFi was a great way of bringing finance to this industry. That was quite good. Like while we were, watching this in ICO boom and all that, only thing that was worrying was that there was not much utility, as I told you, right? So when DeFi happened, that was a perfect use case because Bitcoin was for payments and there was nothing much happening post it, just that people were mining Bitcoin and like paying each other. But that payment also was not like micropayments, right? Where it was interesting that we could see DeFi involved on one side where there's not payments, but it was at least people could figure out ways to bringing banking system to Web3. We've seen all the innovations that happened during that phase as well. It's a very interesting concept that boomed big and still has been one of the biggest utilities in crypto. So yes, I would think that's one innovation that we saw happening in front of us, and it was fascinating.
I want to ask you this follow-up question about crypto and DeFi. And there's been this argument that when it comes to product market fit and the crypto industry, it really has only found it with maybe DeFi. And I know there's arguments that sort of go beyond that, including gaming or AI and things like that. But how do you come in on that? I mean, do you see crypto enabling a DeFi world and then everything else is a little bit of an experiment and wait and see, or something different?
I wouldn't say exactly that, but I think we should see this in a different angle, right? One thing, if for good or bad, crypto has always been, or Web3 projects have been always associated with the market volatility. And the retail have always associated with crypto into like making money, right? They've always fascinated and loved the concept that if you involve in a project, you will probably be able to make some additional revenue. And they like the fact that you could trade and you could do some DeFi activities to earn additionally. I think that's what is like really made people kind of like see crypto always as a derivative forms of multiple versions of DeFi, right? Like gaming to be like GameFi because, they wanted to bring in some kind of elements of DeFi because DeFi was so huge that the retail wanted that. So they bring in elements of trading and GameFi and stuff like with trading the assets and stuff. And we've also seen that evolve a bit to NFTs. NFTs are majorly trade. And then we've all also seen that evolving slightly into AI, right? That's the mode that has been traveled over. In a way, it's good because you see liquidity happening. You could fight against larger traditional projects out there because you have liquidity here. It gives you the power to push forward and do some innovations. On one side, if your project is not, DeFi worthy, like if, you have a bunch of scientists working on something which is innovative and they don't want to spend time on bringing in DeFi elements because it's totally unnecessary, then the project is not really spoken about. And I've heard and I've seen many projects which are like really innovative and they're passionate about what they're building, but they don't have sort of like a crypto angle or a token angle to it, and no one really cares about those projects. So that's the the negative side of the spectrum. But I guess we all have to balance, and we have to all figure out ways where we can do innovations and also have certain elements which are fun for the retail, for the larger masses to participate.
The GRTiQ podcast is made possible by a generous grant from the Graph Foundation. The Graph Grants program provides support for protocol infrastructure, pooling, dApps, subgraphs, and community building efforts. Learn more at thegraph.foundation. That's thegraph.foundation.
Hi, this is GRTiQ, and thank you for listening. Listeners who enjoy this content can help support the GRTiQ podcast by leaving a review or a 5-star rating wherever they download podcasts, by sharing episodes on social media, or by simply telling a friend or colleague about something they heard or learned from one of our guests. It's support from listeners like you that make it possible for us to keep shining a light on the people and stories behind Web3 and the Graph. Let's go back then to those early conversations that you talked about just moments ago that led to launching OpenLedger. You were talking about some insights you got related to data and the nature of data being a little bit of a bottleneck for conventional or traditional, I guess, companies making the migration into Web3. Can you go back there and just give us a little more information about the origins of OpenLedger and sort of what the vision was that you were exploring?
When we initially started, right, so we were exploring of how we can bring like data on chain. We were exploring like how we can have like a database on chain and stuff like that. But like we kind of found out that not many people like really cared about. Like they would partner with you, they would do some label partnerships just to bring the brand name out, but it would not be like really a long-term usage, right? They would just try to experiment with it. The major reason why is because like you always already having users and the transactions on chain. You don't want to have more data on chain because it's just going to cost you more money. So we kind of realized that as we were building a product and kind of like move towards more data and AI, because data is one of the biggest bottlenecks in AI, right? And we saw that there was a natural need. We had a lot of interest coming in from AI projects to work with us. That's why we also figured out that there would be a need for like specialized models in the industry. AI was booming. Everyone was moving away from just using AI for like information seeking to much more serious and productive use cases. As that was happening, we also like kind of figured out that if AI is going to be a general purpose technology and it's going to be used in multiple places, like in your office, in your work, in when you buy for groceries and stuff like that, then you need to have a multi-model system where you don't use just one LLM, one large language model that powers all these current products like OpenAI's ChatGPT or Llama, which powers Meta's AI apps, and sort of like other AI apps out there. Most of them use either between these Llama or OpenAI's model, or it uses open source like Mistral and all that, right? These are like large language models which are good enough to like give you the context, right? It just gives you a general knowledge of the context. It's very widespread, but it's not specified to a particular domain, right? You could do like a RAG, but it's not very efficient. And that is what led us to kind of think how we can build like specialized models which are fine-tuned for a particular purpose, for a particular need. And they can work along with an LLM, where these specialized models not only perform on their own, they work with an LLM to get a context of the query that is asked. It could be a query or an input that comes in. And then they use the specialized models to actually execute the job and give you the output, right? And we saw this was happening in apps like Perplexity and all that, where they use like a large language model, like an OpenAI's model, to understand the context of the internet scrape data. And they go ahead and use another specialized model, let's say like a fee model, to go ahead and answer a math question, right? So we saw this happening, we saw this trend, and we knew that this is what is going to be the future, and started building out this product where, we could build like a specialized model on top of us, and you start with collecting like specialized data, right? It is basically like proprietary data of a particular domain. It could come from a business or it will come from a subject matter expert. Once the data is collected, you can then fine tune a model with that. And then you can let that be available in our platform for any apps or agents to infer. What additionally we also did is like we could also provide that data as a vectorized embeddings, like a RAG, so that you can use like any base model and then attach RAGs, specialized RAGs to that. So that's what we build in OpenLedger.
As you've built OpenLedger and you've obviously driving and focusing in on this AI/blockchain narrative that I would argue sort of caught the attention of the blockchain industry within the last, call it, year or so. But as you've been building in that space and seeing, I guess, competition arise and the narratives throughout the industry arise, what are some of the observations you've made? I mean, is there huge demand for this? Is the narrative becoming noise in the industry? How do you make sense of all of it?
As I told you before, right, right from ICOs to the DeFi era to the NFT boom, we've always seen noise coming in when there is a new innovation happens in the industry. There is a lot of noise that gets generated, and then after a certain time, all the fluff is gone, and then you have projects that are the real deal, right? And it's very natural. It's not like crypto industry is the only thing that is there, which this thing happens. You've always seen this in the traditional industry as well. You've seen this with the dot-com bubble. We've seen this in the current AI scene that is happening as well. There are so many, like, it would be hard to count. Like, there are like 10,000s of AI agent companies just in Silicon Valley doing very similar works. It is very natural for humans to like get to know that something is booming and try to experiment with that. And some of them might click, some of them might die down. And I think that's what is happening with the Web3 industry as well. And I think that's absolutely fine. If your project is solid and your intentions are good, you would be able to stand out from the community and you would be able to last longer compared to the competition. And it's good to have competition. You learn from each other. You know what is working. You know what's not working. And it just creates more and more better and higher awareness to the entire ecosystem.
I've had other guests on the podcast that are exploring this AI and decentralization, and there's a whole bunch of like really brilliant people like yourself working on it. When you think about OpenLedger within sort of a competitive set of people that are exploring these things, how would you describe what makes OpenLedger unique?
There are aspects that I guess we're working, which not many people have really concentrated on, like attribution. A lot of people talk about it, but the way we do attribution is a bit different, because attribution is very important, which is a centerpiece of our product, because we build specialized models. And the biggest moving point here is the data. And the data contributors have to be benefited when these models make revenue, when these models are being used. For us, the first thing that we would implement when we go live is to make sure that attribution works, right? And all three aspects of first website, we can collect data, we can build models, and we can let apps use these models. All of this has to work together for attribution to like really kick in and make sure that rewards are distributed back to the data providers. So I guess that's how we are a bit different from other projects. And AI's spectrum is so big, right? Like there are data labeling companies. Some people mistake that we are competition data labeling companies, which we're not. We don't do data labeling. We collect data. We could work with data labeling companies. The companies that like Grass, which does data collection, which is one part of what we do. Like we can collect data. We could collect data ourselves. We could collect data from Grass as well. So I wouldn't say that there are like direct competitions to us, but there are people who do certain things in what we do. But we are trying to build sort of like a larger ecosystem where we would have to collaborate with all these people and then build them and help them build on top of us, and also build together with them so that the ecosystem grows.
One of the things that when you're talking about AI, everybody's sort of interested in is AI agents. And I think we've seen a few of these sort of out in the wild and people are very interested in them. When you pair this story or vision of like what AI agents will do with what you're working on and this specialized models, how does that story evolve there? What does AI agents and specialized models from OpenLedger sort of do in the world?
If you take a look at the current agent market, right? So it's more as an entertainment where people use agents to tweet and like give shout outs, and it probably maybe like an agent twin which you can interact with, which are like very initial levels of what it can potentially do. But if you want to go much more deeper and make agents maybe to like trade for you, there are some trading agents today, but they're not very efficient, right? But if you want an agent which is like really efficient and which has the knowledge that is necessary to execute a trade and probably like return millions of dollars for you, you would want something which is an expert in that particular field, right? And for that, if you want to build a model, you need to have like very specialized domain-specific data. That is what you can do on top of us, right? You can collect like domain-specific data and build models which are domain-specific for, like, for example, like trading, and which could have much more precise output compared to existing models that is out there. So you can build much more purposeful agents on top of this, right? You could build an agent for like governance on top of this, which understands this Web3 governance much more detail. You could build agents which give you like Web3 alpha. Like you can just train that with all the history of Web3 alpha that has been happening today, that happened till today. And then you can also give a RAG, which has the current news that is happening, and you can have like a Web3 alpha data net and a Web3 alpha model on top of you, and then you can build an agent which goes ahead and shouts out all the alpha that is happening to you on your Telegram or your Twitter or wherever. So like purposeful agents which use these models, useful, unique models, can be built on top of us. And it could be an app, it could be a service that can also use us. So I guess that's how, we could add value to the current agent scenes that is happening today.
As is common with most Web3 projects and ecosystem, there's different stakeholders that can participate in an ecosystem and contribute value. It's the case at OpenLedger, as far as I can tell, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, there's 3 primary stakeholder groups: data nets, models, and agents. Can you describe what those are and maybe correct where I'm wrong there?
Yeah, I think we've gone a bit about that as well. So, but maybe I can give you some idea. So as I told you, like we build specialized models on top of us. And in order to have a specialized model, you need to have the first step to that is to actually collect specialized data. And that is where our data nets come in. You can use our data nets. Think of them as contracts. You could create a contract for, let's say, Solidity data collection and start to collect Solidity data. And you can write a rule engine on what kind of data you want to collect and how the data has to be. And you can use our validator set. We work with EigenLayer for validation. So we can use EigenLayer AWS operators to validate the data that is being collected on your data net. And as the data is contributed, it is validated and then it's stored on chain. The hash of the data is stored on chain, and the data could be in the location that you choose to. And then the wallet of each contributor, it could be a subject matter expert or a business contributing for that. The wallet address, which is tagged to that particular data, is put on chain as well. And this is sort of like the first phase, right? This is where the data net is used like a repository to collect data. And then model training happens, right? You could go ahead and take this data set once it's collected. Anyone is a permissionless platform, so they could find these data repositories that are available to use those data repositories to train models on top of us, where they start fine-tuning models using LoRa fine-tuning. They could use any Llama model or other open source model that will be hosted in our platform to go ahead and train with this data. Or take the model as it is, train the model, and then provide this data as a RAG to these models and then make them available. So you can either fine-tune these models with the data that we have collected, or you could provide a RAG to these models and then host it in our platform. Now you've hosted a fine-tuned specialized model in our platform, which can then be accessed by apps and agents. This could be an existing agent that is already operating, which needs better models to make better outputs. They can use them. Or you can use our interface where we have an agentic framework available. We'll be working with other open source agentic frameworks. And you could use any of these frameworks to go ahead and launch an agent and connect that with any of these models that is hosted in that platform to execute and do your agentic task. Or it could be an app or another app which just needs an AI service call. You could go ahead and use our APIs to call in for that. So yes, so that's sort of like the third agentic or the app layer. So these are the 3 layers that I built on OpenLedger. And what connects all of these layers is the attribution, as I told you. So once you're able to attribute the data provider to the actual output of a model, you ensure that a data provider knows where his data is traveling, which model it's being used for, and how he's going to get benefited based on the model's usage. He'll be able to track all of that on-chain. He will be able to have that on-chain and he'll be able to see that. A model creator, once he knows that how a data is influencing his own model, would know that the model performs in a certain way when a particular data is collected. So they can optimize the data that they want to collect and how the data's usage as well. So they can figure out what are the unuseful data that being collected. They could refine the model much more. They could prune the model much more as they start using this model and start seeing how the data is being used as well. And then the third is the app or the agent side. Because of attribution, they know where the data is originating from. They know the source. They know that the data is probably not biased, and they can verify that. So they have better trust in using our platform and using our models. So yes, so that's how these 3 individual layers in OpenLedger work, and how attribution connects all these 3 layers.
I want to ask you this question about the importance of decentralization. So when it comes to the whole blockchain crypto ethos, clearly a lot of people have strong opinions about the importance of decentralization. But if we narrow it down to this discussion around AI and why decentralization is important for AI, how would you sort of describe that?
So I believe in this factor that you don't have to decentralize everything. So you have to decentralize wherever it is necessary. Like, for example, bootstrapping is one of the biggest places where you can use decentralization, right? Where you try to bring in large group of people from various parts of the world and make them contribute resources and use decentralized primitives like on-chain, rewards and on-chain verifications to make sure that they are rewarded equally. So that really helps for the industry. And we've seen that happening with decentralized GPUs, right? People across the globe contributed GPUs and they were rewarded for that. And developers got GPUs at much, much more lower cost compared to the cost that you would get from a centralized GPU provider. And that's what we are trying to work with data, right? We're going to provide a platform where anyone across the globe can contribute data and models can be built on top of that. And they get paid for that as these models are being used, right? So bootstrapping, model creation, and getting data at much lower cost compared to the current existing platforms. And we also encourage, on the other hand, this is like bootstrapping, right? Another one is the verification aspect of decentralization. You can verify and you can see the provenance on chain. You know that, it's immutable. You can believe in this trustless system. So this basically enables anyone across this globe, like businesses which have like proprietary data to contribute the data. They can confidently know that the data is not being manipulated. They would be able to figure out where this data travels and which model is being trained on. They would also be able to see on chain if whether the model was used and if their data was used on the output and whether they're getting paid for that. They'll be able to see that on chain. So a business knows that if their data is being consumed, they're attributed back rightly and they're getting fairly rewarded for that. And we use blockchain again over there to and show that verification on chain, which builds this trusted system. So yeah, so I would say like these two are like one of the biggest reasons like why we use and why I think like blockchain should be used for a technology like AI. It just makes the entire system much more transparent and much more accessible.
When we talk about the original vision of OpenLedger and then where you are today, I know there's been some news and announcements related to the Testnet, but what can you tell us about what's going on in the OpenLedger community and how people can get involved?
Yeah, so our testnet is going live in about a few days. We're running like internal test run with our community and then we'll like open up. So the idea behind this is to like go on a phased manner, right? We would love to get constant feedback from our community as we build this product out and as we have it for testing. And the first layer to that is the data net layer, right? And we're building something called a data intelligence layer, which is built by an ex-Google DeepMind guy who's he's building a product which is, think of that to be like a much more deeper and a high vertical version of Common Crawl, right? So he's using OpenLedger's infrastructure to collect internet data. It's called DIL layer, which is a common data pool that will be part of our data net, where anyone can use this while they are fine-tuning models to fill in data wherever necessary. That's the first phase. And then we will roll out other phases where anyone can start launching their own data nets on top of us. And then that will evolve on to letting people launch models, training those models, and then fine-tuning those models to the data that was collected, experimenting with RAG, converting this data as a RAG, and then providing that with models as well. All of that will happen as we progress through the testnet.
How can people learn more and sign up for more information and stay in touch with everything?
Yeah, so, we would give out rewards as points in our platform and we want more people to participate and we would encourage them and we want to reward them for that. So more news about that is available in our Twitter handle at OpenLedger HQ. And you can also visit our website, OpenLedger.xyz. You would find a lot of information there and we've been constantly communicating to our community as well. And you could also join our Discord channel, which is available in our website, which has much more quicker updates and you could ask questions and our team would be able to reach out to you.
I want to ask you a couple questions about the nature of entrepreneurship and your experience. You've worked and started several firms, including this project now, OpenLedger. What have you learned about the nature of entrepreneurship based on your experiences, what it sort of takes to succeed?
I think perseverance is very important as an entrepreneur. Right from 2017, as we started building projects and we've worked with multiple projects, in OpenLedger, we are one of the core contributors. What we've kind of learned is, I think perseverance is the key for all of this, especially in an industry like crypto, where it's so volatile. If the market goes down, you don't know when it's going to really come back again. And unfortunately, we are all dependent on the market, at least for the next few years. I hope it stabilizes later on. In that case, you would need to have perseverance. You would need to have a positive mindset. It's a very difficult job. You need to have a lot of passion in the work that you do, and passion what will keep you going on every day, because not every day would be a happy, good, lucky day, right? So I guess these three are the most important factors for any entrepreneur to have.
And what about how you think about startups? So if an entrepreneur needs to have a couple of those qualities, what do you think it's important when it comes to launching a project, the types of activities or the type of factors that determine the success of a good idea?
I guess you need to see past all the noise that is there. And then especially referring that to Web3 crypto, right? You would start seeing a lot of noise. And you might want to shift your mind to the one that is really happening. A company should have a very clear focus and a belief that what they're building on will work. That doesn't mean that if no one is going to like your project and you just keep on building something which is useless, you need to make sure that your product is useful. You need to make sure that the people would like what you're building and would use what you're building, but never be distracted by all the noise that is there. Be focused and build towards something which you think is useful for the people. And I think that always helps startups. Also getting constant feedback from your community and people in the industry is really helpful always. I think these two are key factors for betterment of a product. And if a product is good, everything will fall in place. Everyone will talk about you. People will start using your product. You don't have to worry about funding and liquidity and all that. So as long as you concentrate and put your mind into that, I think other things will fall into place.
As part of the funding round for OpenLedger, you got to work with other founders, and you mentioned them at the beginning of the interview, some of the projects like Eigenlayer and Polygon. I'm curious because of some of the work you've done there and some of the people you've met. What have you learned from them about leadership or management?
We've been in the industry from 2017, so met a lot of founders. They've always taught many things about the industry, helped us see beyond the hypes that are there. Especially someone like Ram Kumar, right, and Sandeep and all these folks. They've been really helpful to us in terms of just guiding us whenever we had some questions, or really showing what's Web3 and decentralization is all about, right? We've always seen their passion towards the industry, and that really motivated us in most whenever we had a bad downtime, right? And there has been very key players, during this travel for us from 2017, who really structured our organization and helped us work with very interesting people. Entrepreneurs help each other, right? They know what really goes wrong when a company is being built, and entrepreneurs are usually very empathetic in that case. That's really helped us in terms of shaping our company. Some conversations that we had with people have really changed how the outcome of a company is, right? Those few minutes have really guided us to doing something what we're doing now. So yes, so people are always what make industries happen and fall as well. So fortunately, we have met and spoken with a lot of these entrepreneurs who have really helped us a lot.
In another interview, or I think it might have been a presentation, you talked about how it's likely we'll run out of real-world data to train AI, and listeners might know this terminology of synthetic data, but can you talk about that? I mean, that's an interesting thing.
So synthetic data is one form of data, that we believe would be a game changer. We encourage a lot of people to use our network to build synthetic data. For example, the data intelligence layer that we are building, once the data is collected from the internet, we use synthetic data to augment that, right? Because you would need to use synthetic data wherever that is necessary to really augment and build large amounts of useful data, I would say. Synthetic data has been really good in terms of privacy preserving. For example, financial data, where you have a lot of private information synthetic data can be used to mask that. And scenarios where you don't really have like real world data. Like for example, like in vision models where which is you built for like training autonomous vehicles, you can't possibly like recreate every other scenario, right? Every other possible scenarios of how a vehicle would get into traffic and how it like get into some particular accident or something like that, or a particular terrain. You would not be able to emulate everything that is possible. Synthetic data plays a real use case over there, where you've seen this happening in most of the vision models that have been trained today. We've also seen this happening in other sectors where you don't get data very easily, which is not just where it's not very accessible. Synthetic data really fills in over there as well. So the two ways synthetic data can be used. One is for augmenting and creating more data, and the second is for privacy.
What excites you most about the future of AI?
I think future of AI is going to be big. As I told you, it's like how electricity changed the world. It's a general purpose innovation. Very similarly, that's how AI is going to be. I think it's a given. Everybody knows this. What it could like really solve is in medical sector. I would love to see a lot of innovations there. I think that's where humankind is going backwards, right? A lot of people, our health is not like really great, and we don't really care about that because we are running behind various other things. I think that is changing. A lot of people are getting aware. So that's good. So as we are getting aware, if we could have some innovations in that particular space, it'll be amazing. And having AI is like you're having a huge army of people now working along with you to innovate something where you research something that you just had few resources for. So it just speeds up every other research and innovations that we have been working on. I think that's great overall for like human in a society. That's the simple mode, right? It's just gonna skyrocket every other work that we're doing. How like just laying roads and like transport really connected people a lot and made businesses to like do much more quicker commerce, and modern computer kind of like extended that, and internet made it much more accessible. Now I can talk to anyone across the globe. Very similarly, AI I think is gonna skyrocket all of this, right? It's gonna 100x all of this. Yeah, we're all waiting to see that, and we've seen updates that is happening. We see every day what are the innovations that is happening. Let's see how it goes. And we are making a very, very, very small dent in that by creating a platform that can enable businesses to come forward and subject matter experts to come forward and contribute their data for AI. So hopefully we also make some change.
Yeah. Well, Ram, now we've reached a point in the podcast where I'm going to ask you the GRTiQ 10. These are 10 questions I ask each guest of the podcast every week. Gives us a chance to learn more about you personally. And I always hope listeners will learn something new, try something different, or achieve more in their own life. So, Ram, are you ready for the GRTiQ 10?
Sure, absolutely.
The GRTiQ 10. This is the one.
10 questions for astronauts floating in space.
This is the way.
What book or article has had the most impact on your life?
I've read a lot of books. Okay, I didn't expect this question. It's very hard to say which book like really changes your life, right? I'm more a movie guy, but books, I think Atomic Habits is like very interesting. I love that. So I've read it multiple times. Yeah, I would say Atomic Habits.
Great. And so let's follow up on what you said there. Is there a movie or a TV show that you would recommend everybody's got to watch?
There is this all-time favorite movie of mine. It's called Into the Wild. It's by Sean Penn. He directed this movie, and it's about a guy who gets into the wild, as the movie says, and he leaves back all he earned and his college degree and all that, and then he just learns about life, and he realizes what life is all about. And that movie just changed where I see life and changed a lot of things, a lot of perspective of life. So yeah, I would recommend anyone to watch that movie.
If you could only listen to one music album for the rest of your life, which one would you choose?
Okay. I wouldn't want to just listen to one music album all my life. because music is something I love, and I would want to listen to as much as new music albums and music as possible. And with AI, I don't think you should say that, because AI is going to create so much more innovations in the music industry, and it's going to create music that we've never heard before in our lives. And so I wouldn't want to listen to one music album.
What's the best advice someone's ever given to you?
So I had this advice from my grandmother, actually. She was saying that, even if you pour gallons and gallons of water to a flower, to a plant, basically, it's not going to bloom until it's right time, right? So I guess that is something that I always think about. Whatever efforts that you put in, things will turn out to be right at the right time.
What's one thing you've learned in your life that you don't think most other people have learned or know yet?
I think most of the people would have very similar experience. In fact, if you take a look at it, even though we are all so different, we have very similar experiences. I'm sure that other people would also have similar experiences like me. But one thing that I have always learned, I think most of the other people also should learn, is, again, as they always say, perseverance. Really have the mode to stand and withstand all the hardships in life. One day things will change. I think that is something that everyone needs to learn, and also be empathetic, right? Really think about the people that you talk to. Not everyone is having a good day as you might want or have. Just be empathetic and caring.
What's the best life hack you've discovered for yourself?
So there is this thing that I learned recently where you can go to any chatbot, Llama model or any whatever model that you guys use. You could go ahead and say how is your life going to be? What do you envision that you want to become? Right. And as I saw this on Twitter, right, I just tried it out. You tell it what you want to become. The prompt is basically to tell it what do you want to become in next 30 years. And you describe your goals, your ambitions, and you ask it to describe a day in your life. And it just gives you this day in your life where it's very fascinating to look at, and it's very motivating as well to look at that. And it just gives you a good hack to work much more harder and work much more, insightful, as you know that this is how your life is going to be if you march forward.
And then, Ram, based on your own life experience and observations, what's the one habit or characteristic that you think best explains how people find success in life?
Being truthful to yourself, right? As long as you're being truthful to yourself and you follow that, I think that leads into success. I've seen that in a lot of scenarios. I've seen that and heard from a lot of people as well.
And then, Ram, the final three questions are complete the sentence type questions. So the first one is, the thing that most excites me about the future of Web3 is?
Decentralized AI.
And how about this one? If you're on X or Twitter, whatever people call it, then you should be following
Andrej Parpati. I think he posts excellent stuff on Twitter about AI.
And then the final question, Ram, I'm happiest when?
I'm happiest when I see my family.
The GRTiQ 10.
And I show you how things
Ram, thank you so much for taking time to join the GRTiQ podcast, talking to us about OpenLedger and all the exciting things that are happening there. I'll put links in the show note for any listeners that want to get involved and learn more about the launch of Testnet and other things related to the ecosystem. If listeners want to stay in touch with you, follow the things you're working on, what's the best way for them to stay in touch?
They can reach out to me on my Twitter at Ram Kumar tweet, and my DMs are open.
This has been a production of the GRTiQ podcast. For more information, including detailed show notes, visit grtiq.com/podcast. That's grtiq.com/podcast.
Please consider contributing to this project and helping build the community by subscribing and leaving a review.
GRTiQ.